It's week 9, the last week before we hit double digits. It's gotta mean something, right? Hey everybody, welcome to week 9. A couple things. Grading update. I had everything caught up as of like Thursday or something, so I haven't gotten to your submissions for this week yet, but I'm going to over the next few days. You should get everything graded by the end of the week, no problem. Do go back and double check everything in my grades. If there's something that you do that you have a 0 on, it would probably be a good idea to read the comments, find out why, and try to fix it. Keep in mind that I'll take late work on pretty much anything except for stuff that has a time sensitive component to it. Obviously, there's no point in you going and trying to do a peer review session right now, and no one else is going to do it with you. So there you go. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about. I made an experiment a few weeks ago with putting funny cat memes on the end of my normal grading. The idea being there's a lot of research that says it's easier to reach students if we try to engage in the language and the culture they're familiar with, which makes some level of sense. And I don't think you all are cat meme people, but you know that cat memes exist and you're familiar with them. It was never meant as a substitute for normal feedback, and I hope no one took it that way. However, I did have a complaint about it, so I'm not going to be putting them on anything else. However, if you want cat memes put on your grades, all you have to do is hit me via Remind. And I have a cat memes acceptable list going, and I'm happy to add you to it. Again, it was only meant to be a lighthearted way to draw attention to the comments. And if anyone took it as anything worse than that, I'm very sorry. That was really not my intention, and I will only put those things on if you ask. Now, we're working on the research abstracts. For week 8, you turned in drafts of all 4 of them. There's a few things that you really need to keep in mind when you're working on them this week. 1, revise your original drafts. If they're the same as the things you turn in, there's probably going to be a whole lot of rewriting to do, and it might end up giving you a lower grade. I'm giving you a lot more information this week, and that should give you some ideas on how to fix your submissions. For instance, one of the things we're doing this week is you did a research abstract on the corporate ideology article last time. Well, this week I decided to go into it in a lot more detail. I have a video walking through the research abstract, and particularly my research abstract for corporate ideology. I also included as files an annotated version of the original article with my thoughts scattered throughout it, so you can get an idea of how you can approach a piece that you're trying to evaluate. I put together an outline of the article based on my comments, and then I wrote an abstract so you can get an idea of where the whole process goes. And the whole point here is not just to let's nail down the article corporate ideology as much as possible, although I think it's intriguing. The whole idea is to give everyone a shared experience of what a research abstract can be. And I'm walking you through my process, not because I think I have the only correct take on this, but because I'm doing it at the level it needs to be done. If you disagree with my takes, that's perfectly fine, because a lot of the research abstract is going to be personal interpretation. So go through all of the corporate ideology stuff, because it will help you when you're doing your own research abstracts. If you want more detail on how to do the research abstracts, please go back and watch the video for last week, because I go over the formula. The most important thing is One, lots of people do these taking the point of view of the author of the piece, like they're explaining corporate ideology from the perspective of that author. And that's not what you're supposed to do. How this would work in a major corporation or some organization is your boss would go, I want to know what the research is on this subject, and your document would be you answering that question. You do have to summarize the article, but you have to do so from an outside perspective, a critical perspective, because you also have to, and this is something a lot of people miss, evaluate it. Is it good or not? Is it good but in the wrong field? Is it an outlier in the normal abstracts? Is everyone saying this thing, but this one's saying this one interesting thing over here? Is that one interesting thing innovative, or is it a misinterpretation? This is a real part of it, because if I'm your boss and looking for these things, one of the things I want to know is, should I waste my time reading the real thing? Is it a must read, or can you briefly summarize it, or is it something I should never get by? So, there's that. Last week we watched a TED Talk on advertising, and I had an advertising video, and there's two big important elements that I want you to think about, because they're really going to play into the formal recommendation report. As I've said before, the research abstracts, the infographics, all these things from this point onward are things that you can harvest the information for your formal recommendation report. So if you haven't read the rest of the assignments, go read the rest of the assignments. Specifically, the two things I want you to pull about TED Talk and advertising, the advertising video, the point is they're very rarely selling, this is the best product. There's always some cultural appeal at work. And while that's not the main job of your report, talking about how the product you invent will be sold is a part of it. Look at the instructions, it's on there. The bigger thing is, from that TED Talk, the distinction between actual value and perceived value. Actual value has something to do with how much the parts cost, supply, those kind of things. But that's rarely the type of value that we put on objects. Diamonds, for instance. Diamonds aren't rare enough to justify their price on rarity alone. Diamonds are expensive because all of the diamonds go through a central processing house that sets the price level on diamonds. We think diamonds are more valuable than they actually are. Their actual value isn't anywhere near as great as the perceived value that we have. Minivans have never really had a whole lot of perceived value, unless you happen to be a mother of 5 or a father of 5 or something like that. A hip sports car, a Ferrari, has a lot of perceived value in this country. Strangely enough, it doesn't have so much in Italy, where a Corvette would have more perceived value. Something being from outside makes it look rarer, makes it look more exotic and exclusive. Why am I saying all this? Because when you're looking for ways to solve problems, as the gentleman from the TED Talk said, you can either do the engineering solution and try to re-overhaul things, or you can find a way to change people's perception of an object, or some combination of both. If you can make electric cars something that people aren't afraid of, electric cars are gonna be the future. It's gotta be. Gas pollutes way too much, and it's a limited resource. But we have this impression of electric cars as being not real cars, not tough cars. If you're trying to push electric cars on our society, how do you do that? There were lots of grocery stores pre-pandemic that offered the food pickup service, where they'll go around and do the shopping for you. And no one took advantage of it because, good God, how much effort does it take to go around and pull groceries into a cart? Yeah, it might take an aggravating hour of your week, but it's only an hour. With a pandemic, there is an increase in actual value and perceived value for them doing your shopping for you and delivering it to you. I gotta admit, we started doing it because I see a lot of people who don't take the masks seriously, and I don't want to get sick, so I'm willing to go out of my way a bit to have them drop the stuff off. I don't know if I'd actually get sick from walking through a grocery store or if it's just the added peace of mind, the perceived value. But the concept of having someone do your shopping for you and deliver it to you does work on both the actual value and perceived value. Other things we could fix using a combination of actual value and perceived value. I'm not going to go into a lot of examples because you know where stuff is falling down. You know about how we feel about train service. You know how we feel about community colleges. You know how we feel about our phones. You know all these things. Is Apple really that much better than Android in terms of performance to justify their cost, or is that an increase in perceived value because you get it wrapped up in the ecosphere of Apple? It's a question. But it's something that when you're thinking about creating a product to solve all these big problems in the world, you might want to give some consideration. So, let's talk about this week. Individual assignment, you have Chapter 3, Exercise 1. One thing from the book. Not that bad. You have research abstracts peer review at the end of the week. So you've already have drafts of those things done. You just have to polish them up, make sure they're doing everything they need to do. Videos, we have one going over corporate ideology, I mentioned it earlier, and we have a video going over editing and proofreading, how to make sure the little nitpicky stuff, the lower order stuff gets correct, pointing out some of the key things that people tend to do wrong, and giving you approaches for how to fix them. For group work, you've got one exercise from the book, Chapter 3, Exercise 6, and your group is going to do a sample abstract. I have assigned articles for each group in the course folder. Read it as a group. Do an abstract as a group. Gets turned in on Friday. This way, on top of the sample abstract on corporate ideology, you will also get practice bouncing ideas off of other people, and hopefully that will help get you in a better state of mind for doing your own research abstracts. Peer review session is at the end of the week, and hopefully doing all this stuff is going to help you make the best abstracts you can because they're going to be due next week. So that's what we got. It's week 9. We have, after this week, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 6 weeks. So we're quite a ways through it. Get your work in. Make sure you double check my grades. Make sure that you get your conference appointment in if you haven't, because the deadline is Wednesday for the first conference appointment. And have a great week. I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.